What's going on, everyone? JJ Zachariason here for the not a start sit show. I'm so used to doing a start sit show whenever I'm hosting these things, but this is our snake draft live stream that we do every week. And as you can see, I'm hosting, not Jim Sannes. Jim is far better at hosting these things than I am, which is, I'm sure you guys are going to be missing that. But I'm going to be hosting today. I'm here with my boy, Brandon Gdula. We are going to still do the snake draft. Jim is actually at the FanDuel final in Arizona, in the event going on in Arizona. And so he will be drafting with us, just not in person. We did this earlier this season. My power went out. Do you remember that, Brandon? Yeah, that was kind of an S show. And I had to join, and I wasn't live on camera, but we got it done. And I think we're going to be able to get this done as well. But Brandon, how's it going, buddy?
Yeah, it's good. You're learning the hard way what I learn every time I have to do a PGA podcast by myself, because Jim handles like the intros. He knows when to plug stuff, how to plug stuff. I'm like doing my best. And as much as I like to rag on Jim, say I'm gonna have a good time with him off the show, it's always a nightmare because he knows what he's doing far better than I do when it comes to hosting.
Yeah, Jim's incredibly good at it, and it's not necessarily our forte. But let's talk about this.
I'd never say that to his face. He's a great person. Never say it to his face, though.
Yeah, never to his face. Although we should say that part of the reason that he's not on the show today, this is actually zero reason, but we're gonna pretend, is because Brandon and I right now both have, as you can see at the bottom here, we both have 4 wins in the snake draft, and Jimbo's sitting there with 3. I think he's a little bit scared, and that's why he's not sitting here today.
Yeah, he said his flight got delayed. I think maybe he was like trying to hide some wrenches or cause some issues so that he didn't have to show his face here.
Yeah. So no. So right now, Brandon and I up 4-3 on Jim. We went weeks and weeks with like the same rotation of wins, but got thrown off a little bit with you winning 2 weeks ago, and then I won this past week. So let's just assume that Jim's probably going to get the W. Not only that, but he's not having to do this. Like, I remember I won whenever I wasn't live. And it's because you have like everything in front of you. You're a little bit more collected and you can make sounder decisions. Whereas it's a little bit tougher whenever you're trying to talk through it and talk about what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm screen sharing my screen. So like my queue's up. Not that I think you're going to like look at my queue and make decisions based on that, but like my usual like process is all thrown off. So thanks, Jim. Great job, throwing us for a loop here.
Before we do the snake draft, so you and Jim have been doing DFS breakdowns all week. I have one question. It seems like this slate has a very obvious go-to game with Tampa Bay and Buffalo. Is it a game where you're open to just kind of eating chalk and attacking it, or do you think that there are other games that are intriguing enough that, I mean, you're probably going to get lower percent rostered numbers from some of those other games just naturally because of that Buffalo Tampa Bay game? But if you look at this slate in totality, is that a game where it's just so attractive that you're just going to go after it, or do you like another game on this slate as well?
I mean, I do like some other games, but that game specifically stands out to me so much. It's a 2 quarterback game. That's kind of something that Jim and I talk about, is like, there are certain game stacks that, include quarterbacks. There are certain games that you like with a little bit more mini stacks that might apply to, the 49ers and Bengals this week, depending on where you land on Joe Burrow at 7,100, because he's got that hand injury. I still think he's viable. And if you really want to play Joe Burrow, you are automatically kind of thrown into the ability to build a bit of a different lineup this week compared to if you are trying to allocate heavy salary toward the stud quarterbacks. But I mean, that Buffalo Tampa Bay game, I think you have lots of different paths to stack it. With the Buccaneers, we're talking Tom Brady, Leonard Fournette, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Rob Gronkowski. Having all those options on the same team kind of cannibalize each other in terms of popularity to some degree anyway. And then Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, you can throw in Dawson Knox. Not really chasing like the tertiary guys, the pass catchers, definitely not touching the backfield, but I think there are enough different ways you can go that you're eating some chalk because it's such a popular game, but you can still differentiate in other ways.
Yeah, I mean, two teams that, should be relatively fast, but then on top of that, they're the top two teams in pass rate in neutral scripts this year. I mean, it's just a game that sets up to be pretty high. I honestly thought the over-under was going to be set a little bit higher than where it was, just given what we've seen from them all season long, but understandably so where it's at, just given how we've sort of seen offenses work over the last month, where there hasn't been as much firepower across the NFL offensively in the way that quarterbacks have played, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so we're sitting here. I told Jim that we'd kick things off at 4:05, so we probably shouldn't screw Jim over and make him wait any longer. So I am going to enter this contest. We were talking a little bit beforehand. I think that the 2 spot, which is what I got, the 2 spot is probably the easiest spot to draft from in this draft, mostly because you have Austin Eckler and Alvin Kamara as sort of like the sort of obvious top 2 options, I would say. But I don't think that there's necessarily I don't think number 3 is necessarily horrible, but you do have a decision to make at 3 where, you can go the Tyreek Hill route. You could go the Stephon Diggs route, which, I like Diggs a lot this week. You could even go the Leonard Fournette route. So what are you thinking? If Kamara and Eckler go 1-2, which I'm assuming they will, unless Jim does something crazy, because I'm going to take one of them. Who would you be looking at number 3?
Based on what Jim and I talked about on yesterday's show, this week's heat check, he's probably going to lean Alvin Kamara, and you can take Eckler. I'm going to go Leonard Fournette, and then one of the receivers. That's why I think pick 2, like you said, probably the best pick, because you get one of the top 2 running backs, and then we get a teardrop after, I think, those 2 backs. Fournette. Okay, so he did go Austin Eckler.
Okay.
So that makes your choice, easy with Alvin Kamara against the Jets. But then, you're going to get, I'm probably going to go Tyreek, and, well, actually, I should probably go the game stack route, with Diggs and Fournette. I don't like the idea of giving up I don't like the idea of passing up Tyreek Hill, but I think I'm definitely going Fournette. And I think probably just for game stack purposes, I'll go Stephon Diggs. They're projected a lot closer than I would have expected here. But yeah, I'll go Diggs for game stack purposes. That kind of helps make up for the fact that I'm missing out on Kamara and Eckler. So I'm gonna lock in Diggs here.
Yeah, I think that was a smart choice. I mean, I even said straight up, I actually might prefer Diggs a little bit over Tyreek, but at the same time, whenever you give this format some context, you really need ceiling with this format in general, because we're just picking unbelievable players.
Yep.
And we know that Tyreek offers that ceiling. I mean, I'm going to go with Tyreek with the next pick. That he offers that ceiling, even though it hasn't been all butterflies and rainbows necessarily with that offense over the last month or so. I guess 2 months. But I mean, historically, they have fared well against Vegas or Oakland. So hopefully that continues. So Jim took Chris Godwin next.
That's shocking. That's shocking to me based on how Jim, and he's gonna freak out and say that he's changed his tune on Chris Godwin. But
wow, so he went CD Lamb with his next pick too.
Okay, so he passed up some running backs.
Yeah,
that makes me feel good.
I think I'm going to take the risk here. I think that the value is right about here to go Mixon.
Mixon, yeah. I wouldn't fault that at all.
The problem is I have 0 stack right now. I mean, it's just going to be one of those lineups where I just am getting as much value as I can and not really getting any stacks out of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking stacks. We want upside in this type of format, even though it doesn't seem like that's necessarily the case. But I'm going to take Josh Jacobs here. He has set career highs in targets in 2 of his past 3 games. He had 7 3 games ago and then 9 last week. There's still volume open up within this offense. And I'm going to double stack. I'm going to start off with 2 stacks here. I'm just going to go with Travis Kelce here.
I dig it.
And then I have, I feel pretty good about that. Again, I really had Eckler and Kamara in their own tier. But if I can stack up 2 of the best games of the week with, these 4 guys specifically, I really can't be too disappointed that I missed out on Eckler and Kamara.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a spot where I want to get a game stack of some sort in there. And the Cincinnati wide receivers are attractive, but I think I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go Kittle here. With after the Mixon pick, Kittle's seen nice target share numbers. He obviously blew up this past week. We'll maybe go with a fairly more or a little bit more of a pass heavy approach if Elijah Mitchell is indeed ruled out. I don't think he's been officially ruled out yet, but I mean, just needed something. I needed some sort of stack going on in this lineup.
Yeah, I thought Kittle might get taken here just because things do drop off a lot. You're down to 6 seconds.
Well, I just took Dak Prescott when I didn't even really. I should have taken Tom Brady. That was fun.
So, okay, I assumed you would take Mahomes with Tyreek. So I was anticipating getting Tom Brady. Okay, I'm going to go.
Jim went very, very fast with his 2 picks, and it screwed me.
He did. I think he's up to something here. I was thinking of going Brady, Fournette, Gronk, but I'll just go with Mahomes plus Kelsey here. I do have Jamar Chase ranked highest. I'm a little bit concerned about Joe Burrow's hand, but I really don't want to pass up Jamar Chase's ceiling here. I'm going to go with Chase. Then I get a little bit of a bump too in case Joe Mixon is a little bit limited. And Jamar Chase has talked about getting double covered and that he wants to move around a little bit more. So there might be a little bit of a squeaky wheel narrative game coming up for him.
Since I made the mistake of Dak, I'm just going to stack him with Amari and just get a stack in this game right now, or in this lineup.
Yeah, I think that's totally viable, honestly. We have a very limited sample of the Cowboys with – so Jim went T. Higgins, 2 guys he doesn't typically love with Godwin and Higgins, but I'm sure if he's listening, he's yelling at me that he's changed his tune on those guys. But yeah, I think that I don't think you can really fault the Dak and Amari stack. I think it's definitely viable for this week.
Yeah, I mean, I would have rather had, in hindsight, would have rather gone with Brady and Evans just to have that stack. But I mean, it's not like it's, like maybe it's like a 60 versus 40 type thing, right? Like there's a higher chance that Brady and Evans end up hitting, but it's not like Dak and Amari or some like awful stack anyway. So let's look at your team real quick. You have Patrick Mahomes, you stacking him with Travis Kelce and running it back with Josh Jacobs. And then you have another stack with Lenny Fournette and Stephon Diggs. And then you have Jamar Chase as sort of a solo piece in there. How do you feel about the squad?
I like how it came about. When I saw that I got 3rd pick, I was a little bit concerned just because I didn't know what exactly I was going to go with. But Fournette's workload has been phenomenal. He's really been treated like a feature back. I know that the individual matchup is tough, but Tom Brady in this offense, they've performed extremely well against tough pass defenses. Buffalo's 3rd in pressure rate, according to Next Gen Stats. And he's got, I think, 4 matchups against top 10 teams in pressure rate. His time to throw average is like actually a little tiny bit longer against high pressure teams because they just know how to game plan. They're going to figure things out. So I like that game a lot. Very excited about that. I do think if I could take it back, I would have just went all in on that game with Brady, Fournette, and Gronk. But with Mahomes and Kelsey, I'm fine. Mahomes has really shredded weak pass defenses, and he hasn't faced many. And then Jamar Chase, I'm always cool throwing in there if I need to.
Yeah, I really like the way that your team came together. I think it's my favorite of the 3. Let's look at Jim's real quick. He had Josh Allen, Austin Eckler, Antonio Gibson, Chris Godwin, CeeDee Lamb, and T. Higgins. So he gets the Gibson and CeeDee Lamb stack, and then he's obviously stacking that Buffalo Tampa Bay game with Josh Allen and Chris Godwin, but didn't get Stephon Diggs because you got Stephon Diggs. But yeah, I mean, this lineup looks strong overall. Austin Eckler in a really good spot, against the Giants, which is why he took him first overall. And then my team ended up going with Dak Prescott as my quarterback, which was I would have gone with Tom Brady. There was like 3 seconds left because Jim picks so freaking fast. So Dak Prescott, stacking him with Amari Cooper. I honestly don't even feel like that horrible about the Dallas passing attack, though. I mean, like realistically, that game's over under is only like 4 or 5 points lower than what we're seeing with the Buffalo Tampa Bay game over on FanDuel Sportsbook. And then on top of that, Washington's been just a team that opposing offenses have found a lot of success through the air this season. I know that they've been playing a little bit better defensively over the last month during this win streak, and that's definitely some cause for concern. But at the same time, we know it's possible, and we know that there's a lot of firepower within the Dallas offense. So could be worse. I'm just trying to justify the mistake, really. And then had Alvin Kamara, who I feel good about against the Jets, especially with it sounds like Ty Montgomery probably isn't going to go. I mean, he didn't he didn't get practice today. Mark Ingram didn't get practice today. So with the COVID situation, so Alvin Kamara is looking pretty good to just see an absurd amount of work this week against the best matchup you can find. And then Joe Mixon and George Kittle getting a stack in that. Another fairly attractive game. I think I like the Washington-Dallas game a little bit more for potential scoring, but it's sort of in that same tier. And then obviously Tyreek Hill, who's got big playability each and every week. So that's going to do it for this week's snake draft. Not the show, though, because we have questions, Brandon. Questions via Facebook, via YouTube, via everywhere. Let's start things off with Grim Fan, who just wants to make the statement, rest in peace, Demaryius Thomas. Yes, awful news last night that hit with Demaryius Thomas's passing. It sounds like every story coming out about Demaryius just seems incredibly positive. Sounds like he was an incredible human, and obviously just one of the best wide receivers that we've ever seen play the game. And I always will remember, I'm a Steeler fan, born and raised Pittsburgh, not as big of a fan these days because of what I do for a living. But back in 2011, that Tim Tebow play will always just live in my heart. For me, it was a rough time, but you got to look back and say, man, that was a crazy big moment in just NFL history. And Demaryius Thomas was the person who put that team on his back. So rest in peace, Demaryius. Thanks for everything that you did for us as fans and for touching so many lives, as we saw with all the tributes that were paid whenever everyone learned about your passing. Let's go to the next questions from Larry David. Start Taysom or Stafford this week. I'm playing the Cup manager, so not sure if there is strategy in playing Stafford because of that. All right, so playing against Cooper Kupp, you got Taysom Hill or Matthew Stafford. Do you have a crazy lean one way or the other here?
Not particularly. I would if I'm leaning, I would say Matthew Stafford anyway, just because I don't really like the idea of playing a quarterback who has a hand injury. And the thing that you have to keep in mind with someone like a Taysom Hill is we can look at the rushing. He had phenomenal rushing output, over 100 yards last week. But the thing that really makes rushing quarterbacks fantasy football game changers is whenever they run the ball, but also have like a passing baseline. Yeah. That's what makes like Kyler Murray so lethal in fantasy formats. If Taysom Hill's baseline of passing is probably kind of at the high end 200 yards, that's not the same type of upside that we typically can see. So I would just go with Matthew Stafford, honestly, in a game with a 51.5 point total.
Yeah, I think that if you really want to look at this on from a game theory standpoint too, like if you are a big underdog in this game, hypothetically, right, and you have Stafford and Taysom Hill and you're facing Kupp, I think that you could at least make the argument to go Taysom if you are a big underdog. Like if you need to, because like if the Rams offense doesn't do anything, then obviously Matthew Stafford wouldn't do anything, and then Cooper Kupp wouldn't do anything, and that gives you a leg up if you want to go with Taysom. I think it's fairly neck and neck, but I think that Stafford, as you noted, is a safer option this week, given the injury to Taysom. And if you want to use that as like the tiebreaker, I think that's fine too, with Taysom's injury. Next one's from Andrew. It says, how confident would you be in starting Jeff Wilson this week, assuming Mitchell is out, enough to start him over Jamaal Williams or Michael Gallup in PPR? It sounds like right before we started, and I don't have any sort of tweet or anything. I don't know if you've gotten anything to confirm this, Brandon, so I don't want to like spread fake news. But
no, we're good.
Okay. So it sounds like Jamaal Williams tested positive for COVID, which means Godwin Igwebuike, which I will never say correctly. I think I said it like semi-correctly there. He's probably going to be the RB1 in that backfield this week, assuming that DeAndre Swift isn't miraculously back. But it just seems like it's not DeAndre Swift's week. Maybe Swift will be back next week. So if you're looking at this situation, there isn't there. So let's just assume that Elijah Mitchell's out. Jamaal Williams is out. So you're looking at Michael Gallup in PPR versus Jeff Wilson in that same format. Do you have any sort of lean here? I think I lean Jeff Wilson a little bit more than Gallup with Amari Cooper back and healthy, with CeeDee Lamb obviously back as well. Gallup probably projects for like 5-6 targets, whereas you're looking at Jeff Wilson to probably see upwards of 17, 18 rushes and in a decent enough game environment plus matchup for him as well. So I would probably lean Jeff Wilson. Do you lean Gallup or do you lean Wilson?
I would go Jeff Wilson. He got in a full practice on Thursday. I know that he's not going to have a ton of receiving work with Jermichael Hasty there, but this game is honestly one of the best games of the week. So is Michael Gallup's game, but again, we still have an extremely small sample of the Dallas Cowboys offense with Gallup, Cooper, and Lamb all playing together. As much as I love Michael Gallup, he's still the third guy in terms of target share, even on a per route basis. He's lagging a little bit behind Amari Cooper. CeeDee Lamb's way out ahead. So for me, I would just take it. I would play it safe, even in a PPR league. Go with Jeff Wilson because he's probably going to get feature back treatment aside, like San Francisco 49ers feature back treatment, where he's going to get tons of carries.
Yeah, he's not like
probably not a whole lot of receiving work. Yeah.
He's not going to get like a 25% target share or anything like that. Let's go back to Larry David. Better tight end for next week between Dallas Goedert versus Washington, probably with Hurts, and Mike Gesicki versus the Jets in half PPR. Do you have any sort of lean here? I mean, Dallas Goedert's just continue to see pretty nice target share in that Eagles offense without Zach Ertz, but Mike Gesicki is he's the slot guy for Miami. I mean, I feel like we get the Goedert versus Gesicki question almost every single week, and they're just every week they're sort of in the same tier. They're like the same, like they're going to generate points similarly. So do you have a lean with this for not week 14, but week 15?
Yeah, I'm not huge on look aheads. I'm much more a DFS specialist, but either way, these are both good matchups. The thing I would say about Dallas Goedert and good target shares is that good target shares in that offense still lead to low volume overall.
Sucks. Yeah.
So honestly, I would have a hard time feeling strongly one way or the other, but I guess we are looking at the Dolphins would be coming out of a bye against the Jets. I would probably just go with
both teams coming out.
Oh yeah.
But here's the other thing. Myles Gaskin apparently has COVID. And I mean, there could be a situation where if he sits next week, he's out next week, which, I mean, it's like 10 days. I mean, it's not like an unfathomable thing. He is vaxxed, it sounds like, but it's not like a crazy thing to think that he wouldn't be able to make it back just because everyone's going to deal with the virus differently. And maybe that shifts target shares around slightly. And maybe that would get you onto Gesicki. I mean, against the Jets, it's kind of tough to not be cool with a pass catcher there.
Yeah, I would ultimately say Gesicki, kind of just going with the better quarterback too. Tua has been phenomenal this year relative to expectations. So I would go Gesicki, but I couldn't go. I wouldn't really fault anybody for either of those.
Yeah, it's like a 50-50 thing. Let's go to Grim Fan. He says Chubba Hubbard or Javante Williams. I'm going to assume that this is for this week. I'll give a little take on this. I do not like the Carolina backfield much at all. Mainly because, we've seen Amir Abdullah already steal a lot of pass catching work in that backfield, even before the Christian McCaffrey injury. And Chubba Hubbard was trending downward anyway, like as CMC was coming back, just in terms of backfield share. And so, I'm not very high on that Carolina backfield period. Whereas Javante Williams, even in a split backfield, because you could realistically say, like, let's pretend that maybe Chubba Hubbard sees 10 percentage points more in terms of running back rush share in his backfield versus Javante Williams this week, assuming that all is good with Melvin Gordon. Let's just assume that's the case. I mean, you have a way better matchup for Javante Williams going up against Detroit. Just generally speaking, game script could go his way, et cetera, et cetera. So you have a good matchup for Javante Williams. And then also Javante Williams has been, even before the Melvin Gordon injury, was running more routes in that offense and was seeing, decent target shares regardless. And so I just feel way better about Javante's pass catching work in his offense. And he's just a better player too. So to me, I think that's enough to lean Javante pretty easily between these two.
Yeah, I don't really think it's that much of a conversation either. Amir Abdullah had outsnapped Chubba Hubbard in 4 straight games. And then whenever Christian McCaffrey left, after about a 36% snap rate in week 12, Amir Abdullah ended up playing 51% of the snaps, Chubba Hubbard 19%. And then you factor in, honestly, just the skill level. I mean, nothing against Chubba Hubbard, but Javante is phenomenal. You would have to think that Melvin Gordon, not going to be 100% after what Javante did last week. He's going to be the 1A in that backfield. Whereas I think Chubba Hubbard, honestly, trending toward being the 1B, if not just the number 2. So I would go Javante there for sure.
Yeah. And like, even if Chuba's the guy who sees more work on the ground, you have to think about the way game script can go for Carolina. And you have to think about the fact that he's not going to be on the field more than likely when that game script goes south. Grimfan also asks Sutton or T. Higgins. I'm just going to answer this one quickly. It's T. Higgins. Cortland Sutton has just not been a producer whatsoever in that offense. T. Higgins balling out. He has like a 33% target share over the last 2 weeks. He's just been absurd. And that game is also just more attractive in general, the 49ers Cincinnati game. So go with T. Higgins. Let's go to Shane. If Hockenson sits Sunday, who would you rather stream this week? Tyler Higbee, Ricky Seals-Jones, or Foster Moreau? So Foster Moreau playing for, I'm assuming Darren Waller is going to be out again this week. Foster Moreau steps in. Ricky Seals-Jones, as we've seen with Washington in the past, they basically just treat whoever's playing tight end as Logan Thomas. So Ricky Seals-Jones is more or less Logan Thomas. You know, he averaged like a 17% target share per game without Thomas this season. And then Tyler Higbee, who has seen red zone looks, you know, has been involved at times in and out of this. He's one of those players where like the peripherals don't look terrible, but he's just not producing. He just hasn't been that guy. And you know that they're going to be looking at guys like Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, and now OBJ as well, more than likely over Higbee. Do you have a lean here?
I want to say Higbee, but for other reasons you said, it's really hard to get behind, even though he's playing in the best offense of the three by far. I know Foster Moreau didn't have the results last week, just the one catch on 3 targets, but all 3 of his targets were at least 16 air yards downfield. If you give that proper value, that was equivalent to about 6 targets, which is pretty nice within this offense. You'd think they have to throw a good bit in this game script, but this is like a 3-way coin flip for me. Yeah. I really don't have a strong take either way. I know that's underwhelming, but if I had to pick one, I think I would honestly go Moreau because I like the game the most, excluding Higbee, just because Higbee's like their number 4.
Yeah. No, I think that's fine if you want to go with Moreau. I think that if you want to think of it this way, Moreau probably has the highest ceiling of this group, and RSJ might have the best floor of the group, honestly. Like he's probably going to walk into like a 15% target share, see 5 or 6 looks, and hopefully he can find the end zone. But I would probably lean Moreau just because of the upside that you were referring to. Next one's from DJ, Elijah Moore, Sterling Shepard, who sounds like he's going to be back without Kadarius Toney. Or Emmanuel Sanders. I lean Elijah Moore here. Sterling Shepard, someone who you should definitely be rostering. I saw over on Yahoo, he's only rostered in 25% of leagues right now. And when Sterling Shepard's active, man, he sees a high target share. I mean, he gobbles up looks because he can get separation. But to me, Elijah Moore, not a terrible matchup. And he's been quarterback proof since like week 6. He just seems like the obvious answer of these 3.
Yeah, for sure. I have Elijah Moore projected for almost 9 targets and over 100 air yards this week. Pretty easily, just like I make this joke with Jim a lot, but like it feels like anytime the Jets score, it's just Elijah Moore somehow. Yeah. Like they score twice a week, but Elijah Moore has one of them. So I'm going to go Moore by a pretty good margin here. I don't think we need to expand upon it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with Emmanuel Sanders in that matchup. He hasn't been producing, but the matchup itself is very good, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then Sterling Shepard. Yeah, Jim's on. I'm sure Jim is on Emmanuel Sanders this week.
No. Jim is of the opinion that Emmanuel Sanders might get benched for Gabriel Davis.
Okay. Look, I don't hate that idea. I mean, I'm not like totally against that, but I mean, Emmanuel Sanders is still running route, like still doing it. He's just getting a lot of cardio out there.
Yeah, Jim just has some spicy takes, and I wanted to share the spirit of Jim while I could.
We got Joseph asking Sony Michel or Brandon Ayuk. Look, I think there's a non-zero chance. I talked about this on my podcast all week. But I think there's a non-zero chance that we see Sony Michel as the lead back from here on out. Like in this Rams backfield, it's just really tough to just like be like, yeah, I'm gonna just use Sony Michel and buy into that no matter what, without any sort of reports or any sort of confirmation that's going to happen over a guy like Ayuk, who is in a good spot. Again, Eli Mitchell, I don't think it's been confirmed yet, but likely out this week. Deebo Samuel banged up. And if Eli Mitchell is out, they're probably going to utilize Deebo Samuel quite a bit in the backfield too. I think Brandon Ayuk is in a decent enough spot where I'd probably go with Ayuk over Sony Michel just because we don't have firm reports about Michel's workload. Yeah,
so this is one of those spots where it's really hard sometimes to project what's going to happen, and we have to factor that in. What we do know, though, about these two is that Brandon Ayuk has basically been treated as the wide receiver 1 for the 49ers in recent weeks, while Deebo Samuel has been a little bit more out of the backfield, but Ayuk's target share has been pretty much equivalent to George Kittle's. So he's really their number 2, but like as far as receivers go, he's their number 1. So, Michel could come out and play 85% of the snaps. It wouldn't be that surprising, but between the two, I think I'd have to go with Ayuk because we know that it's a good spot and that the role is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, I'll try to get through some of these quickly. DJ asked Mike Evans or DJ Moore. I'd go Mike Evans over Moore. You agree?
Yes.
Okay. Next one we have, does Randall Cobb's injury bode well for MVS at all, given their roles are so different? MVS or Julio Jones is a desperation wide receiver 2 this week. I like MVS quite a bit this week, actually. I think that he's totally fine. He's facing a defense that is not good at stopping deep balls, and MVS has seen incredible air yard numbers since he's returned from injury. So with Julio coming back, would you go MVS or would you go Julio?
That's almost like a coin flip. But the big thing with MVS is that he's no longer just a high ADOT receiver. He's getting legitimate volume. I don't think that the Cobb injury has much to do with any of this, but I would go MVS for the offensive expectations, but I wouldn't fault you for liking Julio as someone who could see pretty heavy volume coming back.
Yeah. Tanantha asked thoughts on which back between Hasty and Wilson. We talked about Wilson earlier. I think that he would be the guy between the two. Tight end pivot in PPR, Hooper, Everett, RSJ, Noah Fant, or Foster Moreau. We said that Moreau would be the higher ceiling between him and RSJ. I like Everett. I like Hooper. I think they're both in good spots. Hooper might be the play, though, just because there's literally no one in this. I mean, Anthony Schwartz is now out. Both tight ends could be out. I mean, Harrison Bryant's already out. And Baltimore struggling defensively. Marlon Humphrey now out. I mean, I could see Hooper being the play here. This will probably be the last one, though. Do you agree?
Boy, it's honestly like I could see the case for all of them. I like Gerald Everett. I think that this is a bounce back week for Russell Wilson. His peripherals have been getting better. The on target stuff has been getting better. It's a phenomenal matchup. I think I would probably lean Everett. But I think the safest bet for volume goes to Austin Hooper. So I'll side with you here and say Hooper's a very, very good play.
Cool. Well, it is past 4:30. I'm not as good of a host as Jim is. So that's going to do it for the snake draft and the fantasy Q&A today. You can follow me on Twitter at LateRoundQB if you guys have any more questions, or Brandon on Twitter at Gdula13. Don't follow Jim on Twitter at Jim Sannes. He's not as fun because he only has 3 wins, whereas we have 4. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure you subscribe everywhere across FanDuel social media. I will be back on Sunday with a start sit Q&A at noon Eastern, but otherwise enjoy your weekend.